Hello, everyone, and welcome to My Thoughts Exactly. It's Saturday morning, January 9th, only 11 more days to go. Time to take a deep, long breath. We're almost there. We're going to make it. If you haven't seen Randy Rainbow's new video this week, I highly suggest you check it out. I think it's his funniest and his best, and it reminded me of the New York theater scene and the theater scene all around the country that we're all missing during this pandemic. So there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. This month, the premiere issue of Encore magazine came out. We have a subscription sent to us by our wonderful niece Mandy, who got Kirk and I a subscription to this brand new magazine. This is the premiere issue with Bernadette Peters on the cover, as you can see. I flipped through the magazine. I didn't get a chance to read it all, but it is wonderful. It is geared toward not only the theater professional, working actors and designers, but also the audience members. Anyone can enjoy the stories and the articles in this magazine. It is published by Louis Doucette and Brantley Manderson, and the editor-in-chief is Robert Villagras. And I highly suggest you check this out as well. You can really enjoy it, and it'll bring back amazing memories of the theater. There's a terrific article in there from the costume designer of Wicked, among other great articles. One of the things I saw was towards the back, they have a game to play called Name That Show Tune, where they give you the lyric to a show tune, and you have to guess the song and the show that it was from. I tried playing this game in this magazine when we got it yesterday. I failed miserably. It's not easy. There are some pretty obscure lyrics that they're throwing out over here. But I'm going to play it with you now, just do 3 of them. And as I love you all so much, my viewers, for My Thoughts Exactly, I'm going really easy on you, and I picked out 3 that I think if you have a little theater savvy, you'll probably get very easily. I wasn't giving you the hard ones. Here we go. I'm going to read the lyric, and then I'm going to put up the name of the song and the show it was from, and I'll also announce it. Okay, here's the first one. Here we go. There may be times when you think you lost your mind, and each step you're taking leaves you 3-4 steps behind. The road you're walking might be long sometimes, but just keep on stepping and you'll be just fine. Can you guess that song and the show? Countdown, 1, 2, 3. It's Ease On Down the Road from the Broadway show The Wiz. Here is the second lyric. Put your thinking caps on. She walks into a room and you know she's uncommonly rare, very unique, peripatetic, poetic, and chic. Now, I know there's a lot of fans out there from this show, so I'm sure a lot of you got this one. But here we go. Here's a little countdown. 1, 2, 3. It's the song One from A Chorus Line. Now, I saved the hardest one till last, so I had to make it a little challenging. This one I couldn't get, just so you know. When the street belongs to the cop, and the janitor with the mop, and the grocery clerks are all gone, when the smell of the rain-washed pavement comes up clean and fresh and cold, and the street lamp light turns the gutter to gold. Any idea what song and show that's from? Well, I'm going to save that answer and tell you at the end of My Thoughts Exactly. But looking at the magazine made me think of New York and Broadway and how everyone is missing New York, the old New York right now. And it reminded me of a story that I had written for my book, Child Star, about my parents taking me when I was very young to my first Broadway shows. And I'd like to read this chapter to you now. But first of all, I have to say that my mother, in our family, my mother was legendary for her mispronunciation of famous people's names. That's all I have to say on that before I read the story, a little setup there. So the name of this chapter is called What's in a Name? Every weekday afternoon at 12:15 sharp, my mother turned on the radio and listened to the Ed and Pegeen Fitzgerald show. Ed and Pegeen Fitzgerald were her favorite radio hosts. They had the most popular show on WOR radio, which they would broadcast live sitting at a table in their New York City apartment. They talked about all sorts of things my mother approved of, like eating in new restaurants, like the Cattleman on West 45th Street, where you ate in replicas of 1850s railroad cars, or the spaghetti and meatballs at Mama Leone's. They would see a Broadway show every night and then talk about it the next day while they sipped coffee at their table. "Didn't you think the dancing was wonderful, Ed?" "It was spectacular, Pegeen." On days when I was homesick, I'd sit at our kitchen table and listen while my mother made me a cup of red rose tea with honey or heated Campbell's chicken noodle soup on the stove. My favorite part of their show was how it started. There'd be a bell tone exactly at 12:15. Then Ed's voice would come on saying, "It's 12:15 and time for us Fitz-Whatchamacallits, a talk show brought to you every weekday at this time. I'm Ed," then Pegeen, "And I'm Pegeen." "Hello, Ed." "Hello, Ed." "Hello, Pegeen." Although Ed and Pegeen are long gone, I owe them a great deal of thanks. It's because of them my parents took me to see so many Broadway shows. Fiddler on the Roof, No No Nanette, 1776, Pippin, and my very first Broadway show, It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman. When Ed and Pegeen said they liked something, a restaurant or a show, my mother had to eat there or see it. I was pretty mad that I missed out on Man of La Mancha. "Chucky, this is not for you. Ed and Pegeen said it's a grown-up show." All the way to Manhattan, I pouted in the back seat of our car as my dad drove my mother and sister to the Martin Beck Theater. Looking out the window at the crowd standing under the lit marquee, I made a promise to myself to move to Manhattan as quickly as I could and see every grown-up show on Broadway. I hadn't yet turned 11. When I was in high school, obsessed with celebrities and everything that had to do with show business, my mother started letting me pick the Broadway shows we would see. "A Little Night Music? What's that about?" my mother asked skeptically. "Well, it's about these three rich people that get all mixed up in each other's lives, and one of them is an actress and her boyfriend is a lawyer who's married." "Yeah," my mother said, not convinced it was her cup of tea. I was annoyed at my mother for asking. The plot was never important to me. What was important to me was what star was playing the lead. I obsessed over A Little Night Music for months because Glynis Johns and Hermione Gingold were in it. "Mom, Glynis Johns is in it, and Hermione Gingold." "Oh, Glynis James, I like her, and Hermione Gingold's name rolled around in my mother's mouth, refusing to come out. Finally, "How much are the tickets?" My mother, starstruck herself, coughed up the $29.40 for 3 seats and, thanks to my adept handling of the box office person at the Schubert Theater, my father, my mother, and myself ended up in row B on a Saturday matinee. I was in heaven. My mother was bored, and I think my father fell asleep. Back in the pre-internet 70s, a new Broadway show was officially announced by a full-page ad in the Sunday New York Times Arts and Leisure section. My parents only read the New York Daily News, but I started buying the Times to keep up with what shows were opening and who was in them. To pre-order tickets in advance of the box office opening, you had to take a scissor and cut out a little order form and fill it out with 3 alternate dates and mail it in with a check. Your tickets would then be mailed back to you 3 or 4 weeks later. That's how I got to see Carol Channing in Lorelei, her triumphant return to Broadway after Hello, Dolly. In 1974, Carol Channing was already considered a living legend, and I desperately wanted to see her up close on stage at the Palace Theater. I mailed that order form in the day after the ad ran with a $36 check my mother gave me for 3 orchestra seats. Oh, Carol Champion! I love her. She's a corker. When the envelope arrived, my mother handed it to me to open. My heart was racing. I could feel the tickets inside. Theater tickets back then were printed on little rectangular pieces of thick paper. They were in different bright colors, orange, blue, pink, and were 1.5 by 3 inches long. The color of the ticket told the ushers at a quick glance what section you were sitting in. Ordering the tickets so far in advance ensured we'd get great seats. Or so I thought. I couldn't believe my eyes when I opened the envelope and saw that we had been relegated to row U. Row U? That was all the way in the back. What was even worse, it wasn't the 21st row back, but the 24th row back, as I knew the Palace Theater had rows AA, BB, and CC before they started with row A. The double-letter rows were always my favorite, though. We sat in row AA when I took my parents to see The Women at the 46th Street Theater in 1973. It had an amazing all-star cast of Hollywood legends, Alexis Smith, Kim Hunter, Rhonda Fleming, and my mother's favorite, Myrna Loy. They used to say I looked a lot like Myra Loy when I was younger. Really, Mom? That's great. Row AA was so close that our legs were actually under the stage. I basked in Alexis Smith's glow as she passed in front of me, her strong perfume overwhelming my 16-year-old senses. My parents had stiff necks for a week, and so did I, but I didn't mind. I'd gotten within 10 feet of ladies I had only seen on the $1 Million movie on our television set in Queens. My mother only wanted to see musicals. She had absolutely no interest in seeing plays, which she called talkies. Mom, Debbie Reynolds is coming to Broadway in a show called Irene. Is it a talkie? No, it's a musical. Oh, what's it about? It's about an Irish girl from 9th Avenue that ventures out to see the world. Is it funny? I assumed it was, so I said yes. The song Alice Blue Gown is in it. I started to hum it in the kitchen while my mother cooked dinner. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh, I know that song. She hummed along with me for a few seconds. I had her hooked. Then suddenly a brilliant idea popped into my head. Mom, can we go on Mother's Day? Just you and me? They have a Sunday matinee. My mother liked this idea. She stopped stirring her split-pea soup, took out her wallet, and handed me 2 $20 bills. On Monday, right after school, I ran to the box office at the Minskoff Theater. Hello, young man. What can I do for you? I'd like 2 orchestra seats for Mother's Day matinee. Hold on, let me check. He turned around and studied the rows of boxes holding the tickets. I could make out all the colors, orange, blue, and pink. He turned back around. Oh, I'm afraid that show is completely sold out. Do you have another day you can go? I stuck out my lower lip and pouted. I didn't want another date. It was the perfect show for Mother's Day. Heck, Debbie even sang a song to Patsy Cline, who played her mother, called Mother Mine. I shook my head, looking down at the ground. I wanted to make the box office man feel as guilty as possible. Heartbroken, I exited the lobby and turned toward the street. Still looking down at the ground as I walked, I saw a pair of men's shoes coming into focus. I stopped, raised my head, and found myself staring face to face with Monty Markham, Debbie Reynolds' leading man. He smiled, realizing he'd been recognized. My teenage chutzpah leaped into action, and in 15 seconds I blurted out my sad story. Oh, Mr. Markham, I wanted to take my mother to see Irene for Mother's Day, but the show is sold out. I'm so upset. Is there any way you can help get me tickets? I was a crafty teenager, and I knew all about house seats. House seats are seats set aside for every performance, just in case the star or stars of the show have a friend in town who wanted to see the show. I knew Monty would have a couple of house seats up his sleeve, and I wanted to get my hands on 2 of them. Monty looked down, smiled, and said, Of course, young man, I can help you. Let me have your phone number, and I'll arrange it. I watched Monty Markham take a small notepad out from his jacket pocket, then a pen, totally amazed that he would be writing down my parents' telephone number. Trance-like, I recited 271-0505. Now, let me see. That's 2710505. Is that correct? Yes, that's it. Don't worry, I'll arrange it. And with a quick pat on my shoulder, he disappeared behind the stage door. Did that even happen? By the time the E-train had delivered me back to Queens, the phone call was already received by my mother. Did you give Manny Markham our home phone number? My mother asked as I came through the door. Yes, did he call? His assistant did. We have 2 tickets for Mother's Day. My mother's mispronunciation of names was legendary, as I said. On one occasion, it was even quite embarrassing. I had gotten us tickets for The Act. Liza Minnelli was returning to Broadway after winning an Oscar for Cabaret, and The Act was the hottest ticket in town. The show was mediocre at best. But hey, it was Liza, and she was at the top of her game. We were in the second row, dead center. When we took our seats, I made sure to sit in between my mother and father to fully enjoy their reactions to seeing Liza live. My dad wasn't up to speed with the big stars of the day, and I hadn't realized he would have no idea who Liza Minnelli was. Somewhere early on in the show, during one of Liza's quiet ballads, and while Liza was singing no more than 10 feet away from us, my dad leaned over and asked in not so subtle whisper, "Who is this?" Pointing his finger directly at Liza. Before I could whisper an answer, my mother jumped in, also in a not-so-subtle whisper. "Chick, that's Lisa Manuri, the dope fiend, Jody Garland, her daughter." Liza definitely stumbled at the mic. I sank deep, deep down in my seat with my hand over my eyes and watched the remainder of the song through my fingers. Lisa Manuri, Jody Garland, Gwen Verdon was Gwen Verdon. I can still hear my mother yelling down the basement stairs while I played The Divine Miss M at full volume. "Chucky, turn off that goddamn Beth Midler. She's shrieking." The only name my mother ever got right was Franchot Tone. She always pronounced it correctly with a hard T at the end of Franchot. Franchot Tone was her favorite movie actor. I have never seen a movie with Franchot Tone or would even recognize a photograph of him. I only knew of him from my mother's occasional fawning over a film he was in. "Oh, that was a good picture. Franchot Tone was in it." I have no idea what attracted my mother to this second-tier Hollywood actor, as he didn't make the Western films she was so fond of. The only thing I could think of is that Franchot's real name was Stanislaus, and that she assumed he was from Poland. I'm pretty sure this had something to do with it. I wonder if my mother's feelings would have changed if she had found out he was French-Canadian. And he was married to what's her name in Hollywood? Who, Mom? Betty Davis? No, the other one. Jane Crawford. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little New York story about my parents and the old Broadway days. Before we end the show, I want to say thank you to our dear friend Joan Jaffe for sending us as a present Jerry Seinfeld's book that came out last year called Is This Anything? It is a complete catalog of his comedy routines through the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000, the 2000 teens. It's wonderful. I can't wait to read each and every one of them. I also want to thank our wonderful niece, Elisa, and her family for sending us this beautiful flower, which we will plant actually and put it on the terrace. I believe it is a gardenia and it will flower. And last, the answer to the third lyric. Drum roll, please. Do I get a drum roll? Thank you. The drum roll. So that last lyric, I'll read it one more time. When the street belongs to the cop and the janitor with the mop and the grocery clerks are all gone, when the smell of the rain-washed pavement comes up clean and fresh and cold, and the street lamp light turns the gutter to gold. That, my friends, is from My Time of Day, from the musical Guys and Dolls, lyrics and music by the legendary, amazing Frank Lesser. Thank you for watching the show. I'm going to go do some yoga now with Kirk. Breathe deep, relax, take it all in. Have a great week. I'll see you next week on My Thoughts Exactly. Bye-bye.